So on the road to recovery has taken me to some beautiful places. But this was about the most beautiful place I've been to so far, the mountains of Colorado, the Rockies. I mean, it just doesn't get more gorgeous than this. And along this path, I've had the fortune to get kind of more familiar and closer to a good friend of mine, Ben Cort. He is not only an amazing advocate, 20 years in recovery, but he's changing the scope of marijuana legalization in America. He is selfless, and he's passionate, and he's changing the world. And I'm just so glad to introduce you to my good friend, Ben Cort.
You know, I kind of came from a long line, and I think my addiction probably began when mom met dad. I had a grandfather who thought that it was cute to put Heineken in my baby bottle. So, you know, it's not like I was getting drunk or anything then, but I think I was pretty literally drinking from the time I was born. Kind of lost that genetic lottery, you know, like my mom, she's got more than 30 years sober now, and had the first family member, a great uncle, the first family member any of us know die sober about 2 years ago. So I think I kind of had this thing from the beginning, but the very first time I ever got high, I was 12 or 13, and smoked weed and loved it, man. You know, you're a kid, so everything you're doing is deviant, right? It's not like any of us were having a glass of wine with dinner. I was drinking a 40 of St. Ides when I would get off of school quick. Like, we did everything pretty extreme, so there was no moderation. But for me, there was no moderation even with the other guys I was partying with. Like when you're that young, when you're 13, 14, 15, 16, and you're hitting it pretty hard. But man, from the very first time I got high, it wasn't 6 months before I was a daily user. And for me, it was anything. I was in the city, so you know, like this whole, we didn't have access to things like cocaine. We had access to things like weed and malt liquor and lots of hallucinogens. A lot of PCP going around DC back then, a lot of LSD. I just started getting high every day, man. And then within 6 months, I couldn't do any of this. I couldn't deal with the world if there wasn't something that was muting things for me. It happened really quickly for me. I never really had that fun period, you know, where everybody's like a kid and they're all like, woo, we're gonna get high and go party, and mine just got bad quick. There were a lot of people who I was real close with who died, and a lot of them who I loved a lot. And I think two of the hardest for me, because last year was a 20 year, I got thinking about it a lot. I think two of the hardest for me were two guys who got sober for a minute. You know, there's a lot of judicial interaction, and I had this one particular court-ordered outpatient that I was doing, and there were three of us in it. And the other two guys, they made it for a minute. You know, we were going to meetings, and we were serious, and we were on the telephone, and we were keeping each other accountable. I'm the only one of the three who stayed sober, and within a year and a half, they were both dead. And I remember when the second guy died, I was making plans to go back east for the funeral because I was close with his mom. You know, we've been through a lot of stuff together. And from the time I got the call that said that he was dead to when I was about to buy a plane ticket, within 20 hours maybe, his mom had eaten a bottle of sleeping pills and washed him down with a fifth. And so it was like a 2-for-1 quick, you know? But it seemed like that just happened. Like there were the guys who would kill themselves, and then the other people who would go off the rails because somebody who we knew and loved died, and then there'd be an overdose within a couple of months. When I moved, I left Washington, and when I left, the only couple guys I knew who were sober down there, I feel like it was about a year period where every time they called me, it was sort of like just, I knew I was going to get an obituary. You end up in places you don't want to be. I was scared, man. I was a skinny little white kid in a scary city. DC in the mid-90s wasn't something to play around with. And I was scared. And so you'd find yourself in situations where everybody's got a gun, where everybody's bragging about something they just done or something they're going to do. And then with all the PCP we had, it was like every night when you'd walk in the door, you'd just like, made it through another, you know. We stole some cars. We stuck a couple people up twice. I was involved twice when we stuck people up, and ashamed to this day of those things. There's a lot of stuff that if you hold it in and if you don't get it out and if you don't work the process, and the shame will freaking kill you, man. Things that we did to, things I did to people, and ways that I hurt people, and things that I took, and even in that short period, like, it'd be enough to keep you in the bottle forever. But fortunately, there's a light if you're willing to look at it.
Ben doesn't focus so much on the war stories and the addiction part of his story. He got clean very young. His life is about recovery. His story is about recovery. Maybe that's something that we can all learn from, talking about and focusing more about recovery.
Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. I was with a buddy who was just got out of jail, so he's still on paper, and so he had to have a plan to leave the state with his PO, but PO was okay with us leaving for a week, and we go down to North Carolina every year and just basically see what kind of trouble we could get into, and it was our annual trip, and he said, look, man, I'm not going if you get high. And I said, all right, I won't get high around you. And he was like, no, I'm not going if you get high. I said, cool, I'll just drink. And he said, nothing, I need a week abstinent. And they tried it before, because him and two other buddies, they got sober about 6 months before I did. And they tried it once before. They had what they were calling an intervention. And they said they needed to have a big talk with me, and so they picked me up. We're going to take this hike in Falls Church. If you're familiar with the D.C. area, follow Potomac along forever to this old waterfall, you know. And they said they were going to talk to me about my life, and I knew what was coming. So I was like, all right, cool. Pick me up 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. I'm already drunk. I forgot my shoes, and I had a cooler with 340s in it. I had a backpack with 340s in it. They're like, you can't do this. I said, man, look, if y'all are going to have this talk with me, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. They ended up having to carry me back to the car. So this was about 6 months before that, so I knew he was trying to get me out. So eventually I agreed. I mean, I love this guy. He's like a brother to me, still is. And I agreed. And so I spent 6 days, and I didn't put anything into my body other than 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And something happened, man. Like it was... there was a minute. We have these burning bushes. We have this, our last day down there, we hiked, we took this hike up, and I watched the sun break through the clouds and the Smokies, and it was one of those moments, like I knew for a minute that maybe there was a God, and maybe he was all right. Like he wasn't somebody who was out for me. And right when we got back in the car, like right there, sitting by myself, Mike was behind me, I made that decision that was it. We'd gone to a bunch of meetings. I've been to a million meetings, AA and NA, because I had 2 court-ordered 90 and 90s. So I had 180 days of mandated AA. And then my mom, being in the program growing up, I just grew up in the rooms, you know. But there was something about these meetings we went to in North Carolina, like old Southern people talking about stuff that didn't have anything to do with my life, and it clicked. I think it's because I was sober. Or I was not intoxicated. And we got back to DC, and Mike dropped me off, and Scal I was seeing picked me up, and it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Like I'd made this decision, right, and I'm done, and I'm gonna quit, and I made this decision, and she picks me up. She got an 8-ball, she got an ounce, she got a cooler full of 40s. She's like, welcome back, let's get down. And I was able to walk away, and I mean, it was a rough afternoon, but I was able to walk away from that. And I was in a meeting that night picking up a 24-hour chip. And that was the night before we left for that trip. It was June 15th, 1996. 22 shots of vodka out of a plastic container, and it's the last time I put anything in my body to change my mood. You know, if I'd have written a list at the beginning of it, everybody says this, right? If I'd have written a list, I sold myself short. The only thing I can say sometimes, like, it's like that Talking Head song, right? Like, and you may find yourself, I can't believe that I get to live this life. Like, it's not about the material. It's not, I mean, listen, man, God's been good to me, and like, I own a car and a house and stuff, and it's not about that. It's about the depth of the relationships. It's about my friends. It's about my brothers. It's about these people who I get to do life with. It's about no matter where I travel, because I travel a lot, I can walk into a church basement and like I know people get me. It's about the ability that I have had to be vulnerable and real enough with my wife to have a marriage that I'm just so damn proud of. Like, to be there for my kids. Like, I'm present, and I can be here because I'm here, because I got a higher power who I have worked with to get rid of a lot of this stuff in my life. Like, I'm just not the same person, man. That lying, cheating, stealing, it doesn't define me anymore. Like, that was a period in my life. Now, honest guy who I hope people know his heart's filled up with more love than anything else, because when you get a second chance at it, and when you're playing on house money, because I'm playing on house money, what's not to be grateful for, man?
You know, recovery, you need passion. Advocacy, you need passion. But when you have passion for both, and your passion meets your purpose in life, your recovery is beyond your wildest dreams. And I've met a lot of people that where their passion met their purpose, where they were fulfilling their maybe God-given destiny, grew from addiction to recovery and moved on with their life. But not only now moving on with their life and having a family and beyond sober living, helping other people find that path to recovery. It's a journey, it's not a destination. And the journey of recovery is the most beautiful journey in life. I'm so glad I was able to share Ben's story with you, his passion and his purpose. I'm Michael DeLeon, and we'll see you on the next episode of On the Road to Recovery.
You can lose the fear.